Today I want to talk about why reading the room is the secret weapon of all high performers. So when you think about it, how many times have you maybe walked into a meeting ready to pitch a big idea? You feel really confident, you've practiced, you feel polished, and your slides look amazing. And they almost look like they belong in a TED Talk, right? But you start to get started with your pitch, you're halfway through, and you notice a lot of blank stares. Everybody's super quiet. Even, you might be on a Zoom or a Teams meeting, and you're maybe doing even a training, and you're thinking, wow, no one's speaking up, there's no questions, it seems silent, right? Maybe you see someone glancing at their phone. If you're in a live meeting, another is leaning back, their arms crossed, that they look bored. And suddenly your message isn't landing because their minds are looking like they're in a totally different place. So you might start to panic a little bit and you're thinking, what the heck is happening, right? What's happening is that the golden rule of communication is reading the room before you speak. So although you have a polished presentation that looks amazing, you've practiced and you have and know exactly what you're going to say, sometimes we need to adjust based off who is in the room, the vibe of the room. That could speak louder than words, right? Because there's oftentimes other things that are going on, as you know, or other dynamics going on with people, or if it's leadership and some other things within the company that you may need to adjust to in order to get your message heard. So there's actually science, of course, behind social awareness, and this can be a game changer for you, especially if you're kind of getting through meetings, getting through presentations, coming to the conclusion that people just don't care, they're self-absorbed, or they're thinking about other things. Let's try to bring them in, right? Research consistently shows that communication is not just about what you say, but it's how it's received. So sometimes we can have brilliant words. I know sometimes, like, I look back and I think, wow, was it my pitch? Was it what I said? Was it the content? Or is it how it was received? So 93% of communication is nonverbal. I know I've talked a lot about that in some other videos, but this means everything from tone, your body language, your energy. They matter more than the actual words you choose. And leaders with high social awareness, they drive up to 20% higher team performance compared to peers who miss these signals. And the reality of it is that nearly 70% of workplace mistakes can be traced back to poor communication. So that's outstanding high, right? That 70%, that's a lot, right? It's not like we're talking about 5 or 10%, 70%. So if you're not scanning the room or the Zoom, you're flying blind. So let's look how we can actually read the room. So reading the room isn't about being a psychic. It's about tuning in to human performance cues in real time. Let's scan the energy. Does the room feel tense, distracted, or do they feel engaged? And adjust your tone and pace accordingly. Watch for some micro cues as well. Maybe some crossed arms, furrowed brows, or that sudden silence, right? Those are signals that your message isn't connecting. And you're going to want to match and then lead. So start where people are emotionally, then guide them forward. For example, if the room feels skeptical, acknowledge concerns before diving into your solutions. And pause for feedback. Don't just present. Check in. A simple, does this align with your experience? Saying something like that, it can re-engage the room instantly. So throw out some questions here and there and pause for feedback. And if you're not getting any responses to the questions you put out, you've definitely lost the room. So let's even read the virtual room, right? What if you need to read a virtual room? Reading the room on Zoom is trickier for sure, but not impossible. In fact, it's a critical skill in today's environment and for today's leaders, right? How many of us are on Zoom? Whether you're hybrid, going back in the office, we still have a level of Zoom that is in our day, right? Zoom or Teams meetings or any of those digital tools, right? But oftentimes people don't put their cameras on, we can't even see them, or there's so many people that you look at the whole list of attendees, it's really tough to read the room, right? But some things you can do is watch out for digital body language. Are people leaning in? Are they nodding? Are they smiling? Or are cameras off and the silence is deafening? Those are cues to shift your approach. And just because you're on a digital meeting or Zoom or whatever doesn't excuse the fact that your message is not landing. So you need to find other ways to make it land. You want to look for engagement signals. So chat comments, emojis, or quick yes or no reactions are great. A lack of them means that you've lost the room. I'm sorry to tell you that. And you need to mind the multitasking. I know we're all on so many of these calls. Sometimes our schedule is packed with meetings, right? And we're doing email while we're on meetings. We're not present. I mean, let's just call it like it is. But if you see eyes darting off the screen or someone's muted for long stretches, assume they're distracted or they're not in the room, right? The virtual room. So try pulling them back in with a direct question or an interactive poll. And try some things like check-in questions, like I mentioned earlier. What's resonating with you so far? Can we do a quick thumbs up check if this is making sense? Or does this apply to what you're dealing with right now? That's an eye-opener, because if it's not, and especially if you get into a conversation with the sales team and it's not aligning with what's going on with them, you will see your chat and the people that want to speak light up like you've never seen. And leverage the pauses. In a virtual setting, silence often feels longer. So give people extra beats to unmute or to type in the chat. Don't just bulldoze. I know the silence sometimes feels uncomfortable. We feel like we need to fill that void. Not a good idea. And if it's uncomfortable for you, make it uncomfortable for them, because if no one's responding, you've already lost them. So you might as well either get off the call or move on to something else and figure out a different way. But the mission has failed. So bring in the silence so that they're as uncomfortable as you are. So why does this matter when you look at human performance? I talk a lot about human performance tactics, but here's the bottom line. High achievers aren't just masters of strategy, they're masters of situational awareness. When you read the room, virtual or in person, you reduce resistance to your ideas because people feel seen and involved. You build trust faster because you're not tone deaf to context, and you boost influence because your timing and delivery hit the mark. In other words, reading the room turns communication into performance fuel. So here's your takeaway today. Before your next meeting, whether it's in a crowded boardroom or a gallery of Zoom squares, ask yourself, what's the energy here? And how do I need to show up to match it? Then lead it. Do that consistently, and you're no longer just communicating. You're performing at the level of a leader who will get results. So I hope you got something out of this. If you did, please consider sharing, please consider subscribing, and check out my website. I have some new tools that are on the website, a new clear blueprint. Check that out, and we will see you on the next video.